FM 94, The Dark. It is that time again. It's time to get to know a band we play here on The Dark. And on the phone right now, I'm talking with the lead singer of the band Spoken, and that being Matt Baird. And first of all, Matt, thanks so much for joining me. And what I've heard from you is you're out right now doing some acoustical stuff as we speak. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. I'm in Arizona somewhere. I truly don't know exactly where I'm at. But yeah, I'm headed from Norco, California. I played there last night, and I'm headed to Dallas, Arizona, which is about 5 minutes from the border of Mexico, as far south as I can go. So yeah, a long day, but I get to play music, so it's good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your time tonight here on The Dark to find out more about this band Spoken. And I guess let's get right into it right away. I want to talk about the band Spoken. And how did this band all come about, Matt?
You know, it was crazy because all I've ever wanted to be up until the age of 19 was a professional skateboarder. And so I would skate nonstop. I piddled around on guitar a bit from the age of 12. My dad showed me the chords of House of the Rising Sun on this acoustic guitar that he brought home from a yard sale. He bought it for $20 on his way home from work. I'm like, what in the world is that? He showed me the chords. I started, teaching myself by ear, and I still to this day have no clue what I'm doing with the guitar, but I play it and sing some. And, skateboarding was what it was about. But then we started kind of like, let's start to play music for real, and there are just some little bands here and there, from the age of 16 to 18. But when I was 19, I was working full-time for my uncle. I had done the whole high school thing, graduated, miracle that I graduated, but somehow I did. Skateboarding, working full time. I'm like, man, there's got to be something else. I don't know if I can do this my whole life. And honestly, some friends and I started kind of just playing around and playing people's garages at these parties. We started playing around the region, around Fayetteville, Arkansas, up into Joplin, over to Oklahoma. We didn't even have a band name, and we felt like it was something that could actually do this. And I honestly, with me, is like when God kind of speaks to my heart of like, hey, do something, whatever. It's unavoidable. I can't. It's not something that's logical, and so I'm like, this is awesome. And so we started a band for real. I'm like, let's do this. And 9 months later, we signed to a small record label out of California, and it's been nonstop ever since. And we started the band in 1996.
That's crazy. I know you were talking to me here just before we started this. Coming up in February, it'll be 20 years of being in a band. That's a long time for being in a band. And obviously there's changes that happened in bands. I'm sure you've changed some of the players currently in the band, correct?
Yeah, I'm the only original member of the band, and it's been that way. I became the last original member about 5.5 years ago when Jeff, who my childhood friend, like we grew up from the age of 8 until now, we're still friends, and we started playing music at the same time. We started skateboarding at the same time, and up until 5 years ago, he was in the band, and it just came to a point of where it was best for him to move on, and he's more happy now than he's ever been, and it's incredible. But we've played in the band together for almost 15 years, and, it was a hard situation to lose that, because it's someone who's been there with you, hand in hand from the beginning, who built whatever it is Spoken has been built into. He was a part of it, but now it's new people. It's like a breath of fresh air in many ways, and that's new ideas, it's new goals. And every band on earth, like their goal is like, let's just be the biggest band we possibly can and play in front of as many people as we possibly can. And so it's always been that, for whatever reason a band uses the platform for, they want to be the biggest and most successful band they can be. A lot of us just have kind of different reasons of why we want to become that, but it's been awesome. We've seen the music industry go up and down. We've seen how it's had to transform and change, and, it's been a crazy, crazy ride, but in the end, I'm so lucky that I get to play music still. And I will absolutely never take it for granted.
You know, you mentioned the changes, and that was one of the questions after we had just first started talking. 20 years being in the industry and that, and you know, there is a number of changes that have gone on in those past 20 years. What are one of the two of the things that you've really noticed, especially? You know, I notice things on the radio side because this is what I've been doing for 25 years. But for on you on the musician side, what are the big things that you've noticed different from what it was from you when you started to today?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a whole situation of how people get music, you know, whether they buy a record, like a legitimate vinyl, whether they buy a CD, you know, they have these things they used to call cassette tapes, you know. Like,
Yep.
you talk to kids about that
Yeah.
now, and they're like, okay, cassette tape. They've seen pictures, or it's a joke, or they get into their parents' record player and they see these little cassettes or whatever. But, you know, you have this time frame of where music is so accessible. You can find whatever you want on YouTube. You know, maybe you might even be able to watch a video. I don't know. You know, but you can listen to any kind of music you want on YouTube. Luckily, bands have, you know, their websites, or mostly Facebook now. You can listen to all their bands, whatever. It's easy to come by. The challenge is getting these people who claim to love your music and claim to care about what your band is doing. It's really hard to get them to actually come to a show. You know, where back 15 years ago, it was something that we all lived for, is going to live shows. And now it takes something where it's got to be the biggest band on earth before anybody will, you know, pay a ticket price to go to a show. But then you have people who are like, I just don't like big crowds. I'm like, well, all of these bands who are on that stage right now, they've played for small crowds, and luckily they get to play for big crowds now. Embrace it, you know, and go check it out and get a chance to meet them and hang out. At the same time, you have all these small clubs where there are bands playing every night of the week, and people go there for other reasons than to check out live music, but they might be able to hear a band that they're like, I love this band. This is great. And so they get to be a part of that journey from that band being a complete nobody to somebody. And I think the thing that has kind of changed over the years with bands and band members is, I mean, honestly, you can have a band that started 2 months ago, or you can have a band that's been around for 20 years. They have expectations. They're like, we should be bigger than this, or we've been playing for 2 months. Why aren't there more people at our shows?
Right.
In the end, it's like, you're lucky to get to play music. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Just be thankful that you get to play music and meet people and have common interest in music. And I think that's one of the things that bands, man, they're really struggling with is the idea that, you know what, you're not owed something. If you can make something and get paid for playing music, by all means, that's awesome. But don't expect people to just bend over backwards and to think that you're the greatest band that's ever existed. Unfortunately, I know there's bands that are my peers that they feel like they're owed something, or they have to have things a certain way, or they're not going to play music. In my mind, I'm like, don't play music then. If it's not a love for music, don't do it. If your whole demeanor changes and your attitude changes because it's a small show and you're bummed out that there's not a lot of people there, you're in it for the wrong thing.
Right. I would agree with that. I 100% agree with that. We're talking to Matt from the band Spoken. And you mentioned sometimes you got to play into the small venues. And I guess the question I got for you is the venues itself, how, I guess, accepting are they to have bands like you that come in to play at their locations? Are they excited about that? Are we seeing less and less of those venues? What's kind of out there in the music scene today?
Well, I think every venue, if it is like a live music venue, everyone is struggling, to keep the doors open. I mean, some of the best venues on earth over the years who have huge legacies, they're gone now. And a lot of that's just because they can't afford to keep the doors open. Zoning changes. A lot of the bands that used to play there who were guaranteed draws, those bands either don't play music anymore or they've outgrown those places. And no matter what, you've got venues that are all ages venues who do not sell liquor. It's a lot harder for them to keep the doors open because it is all based on ticket sales. Luckily, you have the bars and clubs that do sell liquor. Therefore, they do have that cut coming in. But then you have parents who are like, I'm not letting my kids go there. It's like, they're not going there. If there's alcohol at any moment that is access to them, I'm not letting them go there. I understand that. I'm a father. I understand I want my children to be safe, and of course, I would go to a show with them before I'd let them go, to some of these places by themselves. Luckily, they're not at that age yet that I have to worry about it.
Right.
But I really do think that in the end, it's like people can get a quick fix with YouTube and watch a very well-produced show with great sound, and they've got it, piping through their speakers at home, and they're like, cool, I don't have to worry about the crowd. I can sit here and do whatever I want and watch this show because I've got a better seat here. That's a great thing, and I understand it. It helps people become fans of a band.
Right.
But these bands, no matter the size, they need you at their show. One, they want to meet you, or they should want to meet you. Another, they need that ticket sale in order to put it in the gas tank. And another, these live music venues need the people who claim to love these bands to be there to support their venue and to keep the doors open.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And you're talking, too, about bands, the love of it. And I've talked to numerous bands over the last couple of years here. The one key element that I've noticed a lot talking with bands like yourself is if you don't have the passion of the industry, you are going to fail. And obviously you must have the passion because you've been doing this for almost 20 years.
I go back and forth with it all the time where I truly, if I'm being 100% honest, like I started this band, because I felt like it was something I wanted to use music as a tool to simply tell people, like, hey, you know what? No matter what you believe, whatever, I believe that Jesus loves you and has a plan for your life. That was straight up it. And here I am today, almost 20 years later, and that's still it. That's still, music is such an amazing tool to just hang out with people and have conversations. And plus, writing and recording music is a blast. I don't know that the recording process is my favorite, but to be able to share music with the world and it be something that, it's not about you. It's about the creativity. It's about, trying your best to relay a message in a way that everyone can relate to, and it's not just like, oh, I don't believe the same thing you believe. That's fine. I'm not asking you to. It's totally fine. There are a lot of bands that do not believe what I believe, and they are incredible bands, and I love listening to them.
We're talking with Matt from the band Spoken. Let's talk about the band a little bit more again. And how did the band name Spoken come all about? Is there a story behind that, Matt?
There's a 2-minute conversation that happened at 2 a.m. at a small park, a playground in Lowell, Arkansas. We had already started playing these, these people's parties or their garages or their back porches or whatever. And we're like, man, we don't have a band name. And we're just kind of sitting there talking, and our drummer at the time, he's like, how about, actually back up a bit, like Limp Bizkit was huge at that time. We're like, Limp Bizkit, that's not a great name, but it's working for them.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, Deftones has already been taken, and that's the best name on earth. And so we're like, we can't do that. Korn, that's not like a great name, and it's spelled with a K, and it's got a backwards R, but Korn's a great band. They invented their own style of music. Does the name really matter? And our drummer's like, how about Spoken? We're like, cool. That was it. That was done. We talked more about Deftones' name than we did about our own. And still to this day, not only is Deftones one of my favorite bands,
right,
it's the best band name ever.
Yeah, it is.
Ever.
Have you...
Spoken, the name Spoken is not a good name, but people are like, oh, Spoken, man, that's sick. And we're like, really? It's just a name. Or you're meeting someone for the first time who's never heard of your band. Like, what band are you guys in? It's like, it's a band called Spoken. Smokin', man, that's an awesome name. Smokin', did you hear that?
Yeah.
The band name's Smokin'. I'm like, Spoken, Spoken. It's always the same conversation.
Same thing, huh? You mentioned the Deftones in that. Have you ever had a chance to hang out with Chino, or for that matter, play with those guys?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I have seen them play. I saw them years upon years ago, right when Around the Fur came out. I saw them in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was absolutely incredible. It's an outdoor festival. And then I saw them 2.5 years ago at the first Knot Fest near Council Bluffs, Iowa, and it was just incredible. I love it. I love it. Great.
Kind of leads into my next question. If you had to put together your ultimate 3-band bill to play with, who else would you like to play with out there? Maybe currently right now some bands that are playing. Who would you like to play with?
Honestly, there's a ton. But I would the ones that pop into my head right now, Deftones, of course, would be one of those.
Yep.
Price, whatever they are doing right now,
right.
Which I think it's a little bit of a mystery. Price would be absolutely incredible. Breaking Benjamin would be a rad band to tour with, play with, or whatever. But then again, of course, Linkin Park, Metallica, 30 Seconds to Mars, all these bands. But even some of the bands that we used to play with years ago that are kind of like not doing as much anymore, but like a band called Stavesacre, which we played up in Bemidji, Minnesota with them years ago.
Oh, okay.
One of my favorite bands of all time. Just bands like that where it's just it's. I love music. I love all types of music, but those would be some of the ones. But Deftones for sure.
Well, you mentioned you like a lot of music. So what's in your music collection that you have that might shock me, or for that matter, might shock our listeners listening tonight?
Keith Urban is my favorite artist.
Okay.
I love it. It was Bon Jovi for years upon years, but then when Golden Road by Keith Urban came out, I had to kind of reevaluate, and then it was just... Man, I really do. I love all types of music. There's one type of music that I don't really care for, but I can't really mention it because I get in trouble sometimes when I mention how much I don't like it. But I'm a sucker for top 40. I'm not so much into rap or whatever, but I just think there's a lot of really good bands out there. I think there's a lot of bands that are not good, and somehow they get played, but
right.
I don't know. I just think there's a lot of good bands, and there's some really, really creative people out there.
How about let's go on the active rock scene, the current active rock scene right now, currently. Are there some bands out there that you're really digging right now? You know what?
Recently I was checking out Nothing More.
Yeah.
And that band is so good. I know that there are things where I'll hear things on the radio and people singing that I'm like, oh wow, I'd hate to be that guy having to sing that right now. Even though a lot of our stuff is really high vocally,
right?
I already did it, recording it, so I know I can do it again. But I hear some of these bands singing, and I'm like, that is so high. And I think the same thing when I think of Jared Leto and 30 Seconds to Mars. I'm
right.
like, dang, like doing that every night or whatever, it's kind of a hard thing. But then there's also, a band from back when we started as well, a band called Blindside. Every time Christian screams,
okay,
it sounds like it's ripping his throat apart, and it seems very, very painful to me, but it sounds so awesome, and that band is incredible.
Right, yeah, and I've heard of them before. And you mentioned the Nothing More. Just going to let you know, and our listeners, we do an interview once a week, normally here on Wednesday nights. I can honestly say probably the last 20 interviews I've done, every person has said Nothing More.
Really?
Everybody.
It's phenomenal. It's awesome. But at the same time, it's like you got bands like, obviously when it comes to member changes and stuff, you got Killswitch Engage,
yep.
who, you go switching up a lead singer or whatever in the middle of a band, at the height of their career or whatever, it gets really weird. But that band is incredible. It's just a great thing. And then, a band that a lot of times people are like, they think that they're like, okay, so you're from Des Moines, so you know all the guys in Slipknot.
Right.
No, I don't know them. I always wondered what it would be to run into Jim Root or Corey Taylor at the mall or something. And then one day I did run into Corey at the mall, and I was literally so in shock that I heard him coming down the escalator, and I just heard his voice, right? He's like, roar, saying something, talking into his phone or whatever, doing like a video blog. I don't know what he was doing.
Right.
The mall was empty, right? And I heard his voice. I'm like, it's Corey Taylor. And my wife's like, wait, what? And I literally just stood there, deer in the headlights, and stared at him come down the escalator and walk right by me. And my wife's like, Matt, you're staring. I'm like, sorry. I could not bring myself to say a word.
Yeah.
I was like, and so I kind of vowed at that moment, I was like, I'm never missing that type of opportunity again, And I know how weird it is for me to be in Walmart or Target or whatever, and you have these people that you can tell are lingering behind you, watching you, staring at you, wanting to say something, but yet I get awkward in that moment because I'm like, I don't want to assume they know who I am, but yet there's no other reason for them to know me other than I'm in a band, And so then you don't want to miss opportunities to talk to these people who love your band because you're too shy to turn around and be like, hey, what's going on? Because I don't want to be like, hey, what's up? You know who I am, right? No, I would never do that. And so I have to put myself kind of in the situation of these artists who are enormous and how much they have to deal with. I never want to be that guy who's annoying to them, and so I would play just watch a lot of these people from a distance and not say anything to them.
We're talking with Matt, the lead singer of the band Spoken. I want to get back to the band here. Let's talk about, you have actually a new album coming out here on December 11th called Breathe Again. Breathe Again is the album title. What urged you to make this album, and what's this music all about on here?
You know, we about 15 months ago, Scoop, our guitar player, he was just a fill-in for a while. He filled in for about 13 months, and he left the band for a year to kind of just sort out life and, you know, see what's going on. And when a couple of the other guys left the band, I hit him up. I'm like, hey, man, it's just you and me. Let's write a record. Let's do this. Let's start a whole new chapter of Spoken. And let's do something different than we've ever done. You know, whatever, anyway, we did, and we kind of just started talking about it, started, you know, demoing some stuff, and then it got into the producer situation of, like, who are we going to have produce this record? You know, Scoop, our guitar player, grew up with Matty Mullins from Memphis Mayfire. Huge fan of that band, think they're incredible. And he's like, well, Cameron Mizell has produced their last couple of records. What if we were to try to do a song with him? It'd be way outside the box. No one would expect that or whatever. I'm like, yeah, cool. So it worked out to where we were able to record, actually, the song Breathe Again at the same time that Cameron was in Nashville working on some new stuff for a re-release for Memphis Mayfire. So we worked with Cameron, and it was awesome. The song came together pretty easy, you know, and so we're like, oh, wow, let's go this avenue. Let's go this kind of different direction musically, because obviously you add different band members. There's a different style of writing, you know, and at the same time, Spoken has been a pretty aggressive band over the years. Like, there's a lot of intense screaming. There's a lot of whatever. Even on our last record, Illusion, that came out almost 3 years ago, there were things I did vocally that were so different than all of our other records that we're like, okay, let's keep kind of expanding that. And so the record Breathe Again that we recorded in April, it was this goal of, like, let's don't do what is typical Spoken, you know. And so there's melodies throughout the whole record. There's not like a verse that's screaming it out. There's not a bridge that's all screaming. It is the moments that have really aggressive vocals, we chose them, you know, properly. So it's still a pretty aggressive record, but it's more aggressive when it comes to drums and guitar than any of the other Spoken records.
Very cool.
And so it was quite a process to you know, to write a record differently, because it's our 8th full-length record, and so I've had a hand in all 8 of them, you know, and so it was like, it's a different ballgame to me, and I think it's important to not only challenge yourself as a musician daily, but on each record, challenge yourself. Each year that you're alive, challenge yourself musically to try to be better, and try to not just release the same record over and over and over again. And I feel like we're doing a pretty okay job with not releasing the same record. I'm not saying any of the records are good, but I'm saying they're different.
Well, we'll be the judge of that, right? Exactly, the general public.
Absolutely.
Hey, you know, I'm going to get back to talking about the latest song that we have, Falling Apart, in just a moment. But I guess I want to go to one question I always ask all the bands, and that question is, what artist, and it can be any artist, would you like to cover one of your songs? So a Spoken song. What artist out there would you love to hear cover a Spoken song?
What a strange question.
I get a lot of interesting answers on this. I love this question because it's amazing the answers I get. So I'm waiting for yours, Matt.
Okay, one of my favorite bands of all time, one of the best rock vocalists to ever exist, and just an incredible band. I would love for Skid Row original lineup of Skid Row to cover a Spoken song.
Very cool. Wow.
Basically, I just want to hear Sebastian Bach sing. So, whatever.
Would you have a certain song maybe picked out for him, or just wouldn't matter which song?
I would let him pick. I would just let him pick. You know what? You're Skid Row. You can do whatever you want. Go for it.
So now we need to make that happen, right?
I would love it. I would just like to see Skid Row play at some point in my life.
Right.
I don't know. I Remember You is one of the best songs ever written. vocally, it intimidates me to death. Like, it's so high. It's so awesome. It's a perfect song.
You know, you mentioned obviously that song, and you mentioned songs on the radio. You guys have had stuff on the radio. Have you heard your music on the radio before?
Yeah, I turn it.
What I was going to ask you, what does it mean to hear your music on the radio?
It means awkward. It means turn it. It means literally, like, people ask all the time, like, well, what's your favorite record of yours to listen to? I'm like, I don't listen to it. No, but seriously, what if you were going to listen to a record? What would I don't? There's too many great bands out there to listen to the band I'm in.
Right.
It's not something that's like a normal thing for me to be like, I cannot wait to hear my voice on the radio today. You know, I change it. I think it's cool the first time you hear it, like, oh, cool, man, that's awesome. That station is playing our music, but I don't listen to it. I've heard it. I was part of writing it. I was part of recording it. But someone challenged me recently, like literally 2 weeks ago. This guy. He was like, hey, do you ever listen to your music now, like records that you've recorded in the past? I'm like, no. He's like, why not? I'm like, I hear for me, it's awkward. He's like, well, you know, the topics that you sang about then, you know, obviously those songs have affected people, you know, throughout the years. It's encouraged them. Don't you think that those lyrics that, you know, you were given at that point, don't you think they could maybe influence or maybe, you know, help your life now? I'm like, I've never even thought that way. He's like, I challenge you to listen to some of your back catalog and see if some of those songs don't seem like they're about you now. Because obviously you wrote them for a reason. Whatever, you know, chapter in your life you were in, whatever season that you were in at that moment, those songs meant something to you. I challenge you to see what they mean to you now. I'm like, I haven't done it yet. I haven't. You know, that guy's been texting me today even, you know, but I haven't. He hasn't asked about that yet. I'm not saying that he won't. The day is still young. But,
right.
We'll see.
Wow.
It's kind of weird. It really is.
It is.
Same thing as like if you hear a radio thing that you did and you hear it later on and you hear your voice, you're like, I really sound Southern. It's crazy how Southern I sound, you know. But I don't listen to myself.
No, it's okay, Matt. You know, I think a lot of times people are bashful once they do something like that, and they don't want to hear themselves. They don't mind having other people hear it, but they just don't want to hear it.
Yep. And it's severely awkward when you step off stage at a venue and they start playing your music right when you're done. I'm like, whoa.
Whoa.
I mean, there's been some awkward conversations over the years where it's like, could you please play something else? Wait, what? Like, we just played. These people don't want to hear us again. You know, let them buy the record, or please don't put us through listening to ourselves, you know? And so, I don't know. It's odd.
We're talking with Matt from Spoken. We'll wrap things up here in just a moment. Your new album is coming out here in less than a month and a half or so. As we mentioned, Breathe Again will be out December 11th. And the latest song on that album that is out, at least Falling Apart. What's the story about this song, this current single to radio?
You know, we all know people who have struggles. We all know people who, you know, at some point in their life they've felt like a hopeless situation or a confused situation. I know that myself. I feel like I live in the twilight zone 24/7. Like my whole life I feel like it's twilight zone, and that's fine. Keeps me on my toes. It keeps me trying to figure out what's going on. But, you know, there are people that, you know, they struggle with addiction. There are people who, you know, struggle with relationship stuff. And Falling Apart is literally a song about just, it's kind of just begging someone to, like, please let me help you. Please let me be a part of this world that you are drowning in. Let me help you through it, you know. And my wife and I, we help out with a program called Celebrate Recovery, and we help out with the teams that are involved in it. And these kids, I mean, they're struggling, you know, with everything from drugs, alcohol, cutting, abusive relationships, suicide or whatever. And all these things, they shouldn't be taken lightly. It doesn't mean I have to understand all the situations, but I can't turn my back from it. You know, I can't turn and act like I don't know what's going on, because a lot of us are oblivious to situations. One, because some people don't care what someone else is going through. But I think it's our responsibility as human beings to care about other people, to love other people, and you know what? To take it even further, to love them unconditionally, no matter what kind of demons they struggle with. I think that hope needs to come from somewhere, And with me, my hope, because I know human beings, I am one. My hope is beyond human. My hope is in Jesus, and that's something that I feel like one of the only constants in my life is that, and it's clinging to my faith. And hopefully my faith can encourage someone who has no faith, and it can help them in their situation. And so Falling Apart is literally a song about, let's walk through it together. Let me in, And I know there's a lot of people who are callous to those people, and they're like, man, I've tried so many times to help you, but what's your problem? You know what? Sometimes people are so confused, and they're just in darkness, and that's it.
Right. I get you. I hear you. Matt here from Spoken. How do more people find out about your band here? And also touring-wise, are you making any trips up here to Minnesota sometime?
I'm not positive what's going on with Minnesota. I love Minnesota. I don't like your mosquitoes, but I love Minnesota.
Okay.
I hope we're headed up that way in February or March. We're going out on a tour with a band called Disciple, which we've known for years upon years. They're just a great hard rock band. They're great. And I'm hoping we hit Minnesota in February, which is not what anybody ever wants to say. Man, Minnesota, when it's the coldest ever, but that's the plan there. But, Facebook.com/Spoken. Keep up with anything. Spoken Official is our Twitter. SpokenMusic.com website that is actually current, which is weird for bands to have a current website. But, you can kind of just Google us at any moment, and, we love talking to people. So however that is, message us on Facebook. We love trying to get to know the people who are actually giving a rip about what we're doing.
Well, I appreciate the interview we did tonight here, and in fact, we're going to play your latest song, Falling Apart, coming up. Matt, thanks so much for joining me.
No, thank you. Thank you for caring about music. Thank you for playing bands. Thank you for caring about the community and being like, hey, check it out. Here's the songs you're always hearing. Here's someone from that band. I really appreciate it. I don't take it lightly that we're talking right now.
Awesome. Well, that's what we're here for, and we're playing your latest song right now. If you want to hear it, you're going to hear it. It's called Falling Apart. It's from the band Spoken. You're listening to it right now on FM 94's The Dark.